It's Blazing Hot 91, 13 minutes after 9 o'clock. It is Wednesday, 757. That means it's time for Health, Healing, and Hampton Roads. Now, joining me today in the show is Dr. Ruth Jones Nichols, President and CEO of the Foodbank of Southeastern Virginia and the Eastern Shore. Good morning to you, Dr. Ruth.
Good morning. How are you today?
I am blessed to be here this morning, definitely, and I'm blessed to have you on the air to talk about the Foodbank of Southeastern Virginia and the Eastern Shore.
Well, I am so delighted to join you, so thank you for the invitation.
You're welcome. And let's just start off real quick with the show to talk about just the food bank itself, just to plant a seed to let everybody know what is the food bank standing for and representing in the 757.
Wow, I'm so glad you started with that question because I oftentimes find that folks don't know what the food bank is and what the food bank does throughout the year. So I'll just share initially that our organization has been around since 1981, leading the effort to eliminate hunger right here in our community. Every year we distribute about 14 to 15 million meals throughout our service area, and since we were founded, we've actually distributed more than 300 million meals to individuals who were oftentimes uncertain about how they would put food on their table. So we are a really robust organization, and we partner with other public and private institutions to make sure we are getting healthy, nutritious food into communities that have the greatest needs. So, we are so delighted to do this work every day and really thankful for the tremendous community support that we receive throughout each and every year.
When I think back, when I was in school, I remember canned food drives for the food bank. I remember also at one point, after certain natural disasters started to happen, the food bank saying, hey, instead of giving all the time like canned goods or non-perishable, it's sometimes good to give just plain money.
That's right. So many folks are generous with their time and their efforts, and they host food and fun drives for us. And those food and fun drives are very important because about 82% of what we distribute each year is donated. And so we welcome support that we receive through food and fun drives. But you're exactly right. Giving financially will help the food bank scale and sustain our efforts. Generally, with every $10 donated, we can provide about $60 worth of grocery products because we combine the donated food with food that we receive from the United States Department of Agriculture, and then we purchase food to fill in the gaps. And ultimately, our goal is to make sure we not only distribute food to individuals who are experiencing hunger and facing food insecurity, but we want to make sure we distribute meal components. So, fresh fruits and vegetables, whole grain items, protein and dairy. These are the things that we all want for our families. So when folks donate financially, we're able to purchase food and fill in the gaps in terms of what we typically receive through those food and fun drives.
And the title of the food bank says Southeastern Virginia and the Eastern Shore. So you have a pretty large range of the region.
We do. Our service area covers 4,745 square miles. And so some folks may be asking, well, what does that include? And for the Food Bank of Southeastern Virginia and the Eastern Shore, that includes all of the major cities on the south side: Norfolk, Virginia Beach, Chesapeake, Portsmouth, Suffolk. We go all the way over into western Tidewater, all the way to Sussex, in fact. So, Franklin, Southampton County, Isle of Wight, and again, Sussex. And then on the Eastern Shore, we serve Northampton County and Accomack County. So 11 cities and counties within our service area and the total population for our service area, which I think will be relevant for some points that we make later, it's just at about 1.2, 1.3 million individuals who reside in Southeastern Virginia and the Eastern Shore.
Wow, that is a serious effort to be able to service that large of a region, a big organization to pull that through. Now, you were saying just a few moments ago that you get assistance too from the Department of Agriculture too?
We do. So, we depend on various food sources in order to serve our community. And earlier I referenced the donated food we receive partially from food and fund drives, but largely from grocery retail donors who donate food to the food bank as opposed to throwing it away. So we depend on donated food. We also depend on purchased food, and we're able to purchase food with the dollars that are donated. But then the United States Department of Agriculture also supports our food bank and other food banks across the country by making food available for low-income families and low-income seniors. So there are 3 different sources of food that we depend on: donated food, purchased food, and then food through the United States Department of Agriculture, also known as the USDA.
Okay, let's switch over real quick and talk about COVID-19, since that has happened and that is what everything is focused around now in the 757. How has COVID-19 affected the food bank?
Wow, that's such a huge question. There was tremendous need in our community prior to COVID-19. We know that there were thousands of individuals showing up every day at our direct food distribution sites as well as our food partner sites or our partner agency sites. But now, because of the pandemic, we're seeing an increase in the number of individuals who are seeking assistance, and many of them are seeking assistance for the very first time. Previously, they were able to make ends meet, but because of the pandemic and because of the fact that they have either lost their jobs or they've seen a reduction of wages due to decreased hours, they are struggling a little bit more than they did before. And we're projecting really that the food insecurity rate for our service area will rise to about 15.7%, which is roughly 194,000 individuals who will be experiencing hunger and food insecurity after the pandemic. So the need has definitely increased, and we are committed to serving for as long as we can in the ways that we can in order to help our neighbors.
You're listening to Health Healing and Hampton Roads on Blazing Hot 91, as sponsored by the Virginia Health Organization, the Virginia Health Department. Virginia's health is definitely in our hands. We're talking with Dr. Ruth Jones Nichols, President and CEO. Now, that's a title for you, Ruth, of the Foodbank of Southeastern Virginia and the Eastern Shore. And we're talking about how COVID-19 has affected. Now, have you seen the shift in how you have to service your model and your business model and your, I would say, nonprofit model in order to serve the people of the region?
We have absolutely had to shift our service delivery model because of the COVID-19 pandemic. We have always been committed to serving our community in times of crisis. But with this particular public health crisis, we really had to be very thoughtful about how we could continue serving while also mitigating the spread of the COVID-19. And so, one of the things that we did very early on was modify our mobile pantry model so that we could actually facilitate a drive-through, grab-and-go, no-touch or low-touch distribution form of assistance. And, that was possible in large part because of a partnership that we established with the YMCA of Southampton Roads. We also partnered with Senior Services of Southeastern Virginia so that we could begin to collaborate with them to actually deliver prepared meals to seniors in their own homes so that they would not have to come to a mobile pantry distribution or a partner agency site where food was going to be made available. So that's another way we shifted our model. Because we weren't able to receive as much donated food from our grocery retail partners, we actually had to purchase more prepared food so that we could make that available. And a partnership with Mercy Chefs allowed us to do that. But, that also had an impact on our model because, typically in a normal year, we're able to provide about 3 meals for every dollar donated. But because of the COVID-19 pandemic, our cost went from about 40 cents per meal to $3.50 per meal, literally overnight. But, we're so fortunate that the community understood the need and they gave to support the need, and that really helped us to sustain our services for an extended period of time, much longer than any of us envisioned when we really shifted our model in mid-March. But during the first 6 weeks of our COVID-19 response efforts, we distributed about 1.5 million meals to seniors, children, and low-income families. So we definitely had to shift our model, and I think because we now know we're in this for the long haul, many of the changes we made initially in response to the COVID-19 pandemic will become permanent changes or changes that we implement for a long time.
Now, nationwide, pretty much African Americans are being affected very, very hard because of COVID-19. Are you seeing a disparity actually happening as far as the need for products and services from the food bank here in the Hampton Roads region?
We are absolutely seeing racial disparities in terms of food insecurity rates that were really present prior to the COVID-19 pandemic and have only been made worse as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. In fact, in a number of communities where African Americans represent the majority, we were already seeing higher than average food insecurity rates. But now what we're seeing as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic is an increase, really, in the food insecurity rates overall for African Americans, but also an increase in the food insecurity rates for children in these areas. And I would say that is probably one of the most alarming things. In places like Portsmouth or Franklin, we're seeing where about 30% of the children are food insecure. And these are places where African Americans represent the majority. And so we know that's problematic because children need access to healthy meals that are rich in fruits, vegetables, lean proteins, whole grains, and dairy items so that they can grow up physically healthy, mentally healthy, and prepared, really, to compete in school and to really graduate from school, prepared for college and careers. So we're definitely seeing racial disparities across our service area, but I think we're also seeing that is the case nationally, and now is the time when we need to refocus our attention and make sure we are addressing some of the root causes of why African Americans and Black individuals in particular are disproportionately impacted by food insecurity and hunger.
Do you see that also being a fact of some African Americans do not want to go to the food bank for help?
We're not seeing necessarily that folks don't want to come for help. What we're seeing, in fact, is people who need help are showing up very hopeful. And I think, hopeful is the word to really focus on, because when folks are struggling to put food on their tables and they're really concerned about how they're going to feed their children, they will do anything they can to make sure their children and their families have access to healthy, nutritious meals. And so when they come to us, they come hopeful. And that's why we need the community to step up and support us so that when people show up and they say, I need help, we are in a position to not just give them any kind of food, but give them healthy, nutritious food so that they can have the positive outcomes that we all want for our families, for our children, and for our communities overall.
You're listening to Health Healing in Hampton Roads, supported by the Virginia Department of Health. Virginia's health is in our hands. This is our segment we call Health Healing in Hampton Roads, and we're definitely healing Hampton Roads with the Virginia Foodbank of Southeastern Virginia and the Eastern Shore. We're talking with Dr. Ruth Jones Nichols, President and CEO, and our time is just ticking away. But I just want to ask a couple more questions because the simple reason, this is a service that we definitely need to focus in on that affects Hampton Roads. How can people get involved in helping out in those food drives?
People can get involved with the food bank in multiple ways. And you mentioned food drives, and that's certainly one way. So folks can give food, and they can mobilize their friends and their social circles to give food in support of the food bank's vision for a hunger-free community. But they can also give funds, and the reality is we can typically stretch $1 a lot more than we can stretch a can of green beans. So, if they give $10, we can generally provide about $60 worth of grocery products. So they can give food and they can give funds. They can also give time. We need individuals to come to the food bank and out into the community to volunteer and help us serve our neighbors who are struggling to put food on their tables. But the final thing individuals can do to support us is to give voice to the fact that food insecurity is a very real issue for our neighbors in this community, in the 757 community. And so they can give voice by following us on social media and sharing our posts. They can also contact us and ask what they can do to engage their elected officials, because most of the times I think folks don't realize that, food banks serve as a part of the solution, but we're not all of the solution. And in order to have more holistic solutions, we need stronger public policies. And so if folks contact us at 627-6599 and say, how can I give voice to the work you're doing, we will gladly share with them ways that they can support our movement.
Talking about support real quick, I take it that you are a 501c3 nonprofit organization?
We are, yes, indeed.
Okay, so that pretty much means that any financial donation that is given to the food bank is pretty much a tax write-off for companies as well as for individuals.
That's correct. If individuals give financially to our organization, there can be some tax incentives for them. But certainly we hope that individuals will give simply because it is morally the right thing to do. If we are in a position to help our neighbors, that is something that we should do as individuals, as corporations, and as a community. So we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and there are tax incentives. But it just feels good when you help someone else. And so we're hoping that folks will do that for whatever reason and in whatever way is most meaningful for them.
As seconds tick away on Health Healing in Hampton Roads, tell us, how can they learn more about the food bank?
Folks can always learn more by visiting our website. Our website address is foodbankonline.org. They can also follow us on our social media platforms. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So there are so many ways to find out more about the food bank, and we invite individuals to do just that if they're interested in learning about what we do, but also if they're interested in receiving help. They can visit our website, or they can send us a private message on one of our social media platforms, including Facebook.
Dr. Ruth Jones Nichols, thank you so much for your time on this Wednesday with Health Healing in Hampton Roads. You are definitely healing Hampton Roads with the Foodbank of Southeastern Virginia and the Eastern Shore. So thank you so much for coming on Blazing Hot 91.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
All right. 757 is Martin Blocks is straight from the 757. Hang on in there, America. Blazing Hot 91. We'll get through this together.